All right, guys. So all day today, I was at Disneyland, and the whole time I was thinking, man, I want to get back in the lab and make some videos for my fans. So here I am, 9 p.m. at night. Let's see what's in the news. Damn, my man Waka Flocka is retiring from the rap game. Uh, a lot of you are probably too young to remember exactly how wild it was when Waka came in the game. Uh, he was always in the background in a lot of Gucci's videos and just sort of around. A lot of people remember him having the side bag with the strap. But he was the son of Deb, who was Gucci's prior manager, also managed like Nicki Minaj and OJ for a period of time. All these other people who got very big and everything. And I believe the story was that she really didn't believe in him. Gucci gets locked up. He goes in the booth. He makes "Oh Let's Do It." She hears it. She's finally forced to admit, like, damn, I guess my son's gonna be a rapper. So that was kind of how Waka came into the picture. "Oh Let's Do It" was like a giant smash. But around the same time, he had like the "Salute Me or Shoot Me" mixtapes, which were huge for us at the time. Like somebody asked me recently, "What were you listening to in 2009?" And I was like, "Oh man, it was all Brick Squad. It was Waka, Gucci, and anybody they hung out with. That was all we listened to back then." And actually, when I look at my whole history of listening to music, I mean that Brick Squad era like kept me from listening to anything else for like years. That all we were messing with was them, OJ. There was some other stuff in there, but for the most part, like that's what we were rocking with. And then Gucci gets out, and it didn't take that long. I mean, him and Walker did put out that what was it, the Ferrari Boys tape. They did a bunch of good stuff together and everything. But ultimately the relationship didn't really last that long. They said it. I'm not just saying this, but they said that there were physical fights that happened in private, and it's not like there's video of those or anything. But that's crazy to imagine. Walker and Gucci slugging it out in the studio. But apparently that has happened or in the past. And then Waka's career had kind of a weird trajectory after that. I'm going to give my personal take, and I'm going to ignore the fact that Waka follows me on Instagram and I follow him back, and that I assume that at some point in time we're going to meet each other, and I think he seems like an awesome dude. I felt, this was my read on it, hip hop has lanes, right? And like Waka for a period of time had a straight monopoly on that lane that he was riding, where, he was the dude, dread shaking, angry as fuck, gangster as fuck, just making the most hardcore music. Like when people look at Flockavelli, I mean, that was a classic album. And it was a classic album that was not supposed to be a classic album because there were not a lot of expectations for that project. And it came out, and I mean, Waka, no matter what happens for his whole life, will always deserve that recognition for completely like reinventing what trap music was at that time. From my perspective, that lane that he was riding got kind of like corrupted real quickly because Sosa came out, and all of a sudden Chief Keef is like younger, more violent. The music was just a little bit like crazier, more loose, more like you had no idea what the fuck was gonna happen. And I felt like that whole Chicago drill movement wave sort of like swooped in and like took a bunch of the attention off of what Waka had going on. And at the same time, he had the big fallout with Gucci. So it's like, whereas previously he might have like been able to sort of stay in that whole Atlanta ecosystem, it felt like, with Gucci not wanting to succeed, as well as like a lot of these younger dudes sort of taking some of the attention, it felt like Waka's stay in the game was shorter than it should have been. And I hope I didn't offend him by saying that, but perhaps he would agree. But, he did definitely went on to continue to have some success for real. And it wasn't just those early mixtapes in that one album, but I mean, he went on, and I'm going to be honest with you, he did like the EDM thing before anybody really. I mean, I can't say before anybody, but he went and like did the EDM collaboration thing, the let's go on tour and play to giant audiences. He did that like pretty early on. And I think timing wise, it probably would have been better for him to have just focused on the rap shit if he wanted to stay popping in the rap lane. Because I feel like that's kind of what happened, is that he sort of went and did stuff that was in the EDM lane and stuff, and that sort of made it even easier for rap fans to sort of like lose attention that they were paying towards him. And I feel justified in saying that from a factual basis. Besides, like, I mean, that was always my read on the situation, just as a person who was a fan of him, fan of GBE, fan of everything. But I always felt like Waka's, you know, his career didn't last as long as it should have. But then when I was reading this article earlier, I realized that he actually hasn't put out an album since 2012. So when this announcement comes out that Waka is actually thinking of retiring from the game, he says, I want to retire from rapping. I want to retire from rapping. I guess nobody should be super, super surprised, because it sort of felt like he's been making those moves like over the past few years where it seems like he's sort of lost interest. I read a quote in this article or one of the other articles about it where he's basically saying, like, you know, I'm not that angry ass kid anymore, you know? And it's like, we're talking about 10 years roughly. He was 22 or maybe even like 21 when he was making a lot of those songs that blew the fuck up back in the day. And now he's 32. And, you know, I really respect him saying that he wants to take a step back from rapping just because of the fact that, you know, a lot of dudes just sort of end up on this really, like, contrived route where they're trying to recapture that energy and that anger, that fire that they had as a young man. Trust me, guys, I know a lot of you are younger. The difference in how you feel when you're 32 versus 22 is very significant. Look what he's talking about even right here. He's talking about he wants to have a kid. I mean, yeah, of course he should. And I mean, he also says in this that he's made like $30 million throughout his career and stuff. I don't know how much money he's sitting on right now, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was like comfortable enough that he was like, you know, I'm not going to be hard up for money for the rest of my life. So what am I really doing? And especially when the rap shit don't really seem like it's paying like it was at a certain point, you know? By the way, No Hands. No Hands needs to be mentioned. You cannot talk about the Waka career without No Hands. That was a gigantic, massive smash. And I mean, the thing is, Waka, like, there's still got to be a ton of opportunities available to him in terms of, you know, he's a personality and a figurehead in the game, period. So it's like the hosting stuff, acting stuff. I'm not even like sure how interested he is in all that kind of stuff, but all those things are right there for him. And like him continuing to do the album thing, the mixtape thing, I mean, it's just kind of like, what's the point at a certain point? Also included within this whole thing is the idea of him trying to reconcile with Gucci. He actually like put out a video where he talked about how he had like a dream or something. It's on his Instagram where he said, you know, I've been thinking about it, and I want to let everybody know that every beef I've ever had in my whole career, I'm over it. I don't give a fuck about it. I've moved on. And at the end, he even says, Gucci, holler at me. Now, that's really interesting because Gucci, when he got out of jail a few years ago, he seemingly like went very out of his way to squash beef with almost everybody that he had issues with, which, if you remember at the time, was a fuckload of people. He had issues with all kinds of people because Gucci was going on we should do a video one day where we just discuss the fucking Gucci tweet spree. I still remember it very, very vividly because I was in Toronto at the time when he was going on this insane Twitter rampage. So I would not see the tweets while they were coming out because my phone didn't have service there. And this is a few years ago before all that was figured out. Well, I assume it was figured out. But Gucci was wild. I would have to come home at the end of the day and like read a complex article that like compiled all the tweets, including the ones that he had deleted. Like he said some wild shit about Nicki. He had to like come out and like go very out of his way to like squash it with Nicki. And, you know, he said, but Waka was the one person that he never squashed beef with. It. He was just sort of like, you know, I'm going to leave it alone. And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot to it that we don't know about. Like maybe there is stuff with their beef that goes so deep. It sounded like I was rapping for a second. That squashing it is not an option or would be more difficult. But I do like seeing Waka come out and say, yo, Gucci, let's squash it, especially if he's going to be kind of like taking a step back from really rapping. It's like, man, what is all this competition and like rivalry stuff based on? Like at the end of the day, y'all some grown-ass men. You both got money. I feel like from my perspective as a fan, I would love to see them be cool again. I would love to see them have a conversation straight up. I would love to see like a little half-hour podcast. Gucci and Waka just talking it out, just talking about whatever, you know, just because I feel like, I don't know, as a fan, I want to see that happen. I mean, from Gucci's perspective, from Waka's perspective, it's like, really, who gives a shit? They could go their whole lives and not ever talk to each other again. You know, it's like pretty easy. Like, I got a lot of friends I don't talk to anymore, and nobody gives a fuck. Nobody ever asked me about it. Why? Because they're not famous, and I was way less famous when I was friends with them. Nowadays, a little different. If there was somebody that I was hanging out with every day for like 6 months and then I stopped kicking with them, like people might be like, "Yo, what the fuck is that about?" But you know, with Waka and Gucci, I mean, everybody loves that makeup story. You know, you remember when Jaws? That's funny. Actually, I combined their names. Jay-Z and Nas. Remember when they reunited? That was a huge moment for the culture. Like everybody was so happy to see them like reuniting everything, and like for them, probably not that big a deal, really, because like who gives a fuck? Like they each had their own careers. I mean, Nas did sign to Gucci. It's mostly for the fans when people like choose to patch shit up publicly, right? Anyway, the other factor in all this that we're clearly not discussing is that rappers always say they're gonna retire, and they never, ever, ever do. You know, Too Short retired. 10 albums later, he's still putting out albums. Jay-Z retired. I mean, it's been at least 10 years since that. You know, they say they're going to retire and then something's going to happen. I mean, either way, like Waka, if somebody calls him up and says, "Hey, here's a big-ass bag for a show," I'm sure he's showing up for the show, right? He'd have to be kind of out of his mind not to. At this point in time, being a celebrity, being a rapper is just one of the things that you do as a rapper or as a celebrity. You rap. It's just like one of the things, you know. You can go host a club night, whatever. You don't got to rap to go do it, even though you are a rapper. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Anyway, Waka, much love. Even if you retire, just know you got a special place in our heart. I've been holding a fart for like 3 minutes towards the end of this video. Subscribe, like, nojumper.com. Peace.